Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zorkel Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Cassidy Ford. Cassidy is account director at FRM Solutions, an enterprise-level end-to-end franchise relationship management platform. A self-proclaimed franchise nerd, Cassidy's experience spans from launching development departments with emerging brands like How Do You Roll and a fast casual sushi concept featured on ABC's Shark Tank, to working with resales and underperforming franchisees with legacy brands such as Huddle House. Now in her role at FRM, she uses her insight to consult with other franchisors on CRM utilization and industry best practices. Cassidy proudly serves on the IFA's Women's Franchise Committee and is a dedicated member of the Southeast Franchise Forum and the Atlanta chapter of the Women's Franchise Network. Wow, I'm so excited you're here, Cassidy. Thank you for taking time out for us.
Yeah, thank you for letting me join.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this interview. Tracy, I don't know about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I am curious to know, here you are, Cassidy, you're on an all-male team in tech in a predominantly male-dominated area. Is this where you saw yourself?
No, if you had asked me, even 8 years ago or 15 years ago, where I thought I'd be an attorney on Capitol Hill crafting legislation. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. But I graduated college in an economic downturn. There were no jobs. So I was working 5 different jobs at any given time. And I landed at the door of How Do You Roll? And they had just been on Shark Tank, and emerging brand. And they say that franchises, not all franchises, but sometimes you go on Shark Tank and Shark Tank tanks you. And so that's what ended up happening to us, and a lot of lessons learned. And throughout the time of my career, I've been on the franchisor side. I moved from How Do You Roll to Huddle House. And then I came to FRM Solutions. And we kind of call that the dark side, is what we joke, is that the supplier side is the dark side, but it's all in good fun. And so, I've just had to trust my gut and follow the opportunities and keep my eyes open. And this has really been an incredible experience for me. And I've landed, I think, where I'm supposed to be.
I like that feeling. Sometimes we do think we're going one direction. And in this case, I didn't even know you had this political side of you. This is fascinating. So you thought you were going to be on Capitol Hill, and there's some kind of a, I don't know, dogleg turn, not a U-turn, but a dogleg turn that took you into the world of franchising. And yet inside, you feel this is where you're supposed to be. This feeling that you have, what makes you know that? Is it the people you've met, the difference you're making, the lessons you're learning? I'm just making this up, but how do you know that you are in the right place?
You've never asked me that question before, Rebecca, and we've known each other for a while.
I know, this is exciting.
You know me, I'm a Christian, and that's just something that if I say gut, for me, a lot of people understand the concept of a gut, but that's just an understanding that I have and a piece that I have just from my faith. And I don't share a lot about that, but those opportunities and the things that have opened in front of me, that's a trust factor. And I'm really confident that right now in this season, doing what I'm doing, I'm absolutely in the right place.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge that, because the peace that passes all understanding, the trust that you're talking about, is from a much higher source than anything that's around you. And somehow you have it. You have this trust, this knowingness, this peace that you are called to be where you are right here, right now, in the world of franchising. I'm endlessly grateful that God called you here and that you're with FRM. All right, so back to the topic
Yes.
of men.
The endless topic of men.
So how is it working with an all male team?
It's, it's great. It's a challenge at all times. They're probably going to tune into this and I'll have to have a little conversation with them after this podcast. But no, it's great. It definitely is not something that I expected, being the only female on a male team. I've always been in the minority for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not necessarily new. But one of the things, and I think it works because of the things that I bring to the table, are some ways in alignment with the other personalities on our team. We work really well together. But at the same time, me as a woman, the way that I feel like I personally am built, sometimes my assertiveness was initially not expected by my team.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a building process. I remember that a few of my colleagues, it took some time for us to get used to working together and make sure our styles, and it's still a challenge sometimes. I have to go, did you check your email? Did you check your email? And that's just something that, like, I'm relegated to that role of checking up on people sometimes, I think by virtue of me being a woman, but also because I just don't want things to go. I want to make sure things are done. And sometimes I take that on to myself in a way that is good because the outcome is good, but also unhealthy sometimes too.
Cassidy, do you think it's more of a male-female thing, or do you think it's more of an age thing? Because you are very young in a very important role.
I hate to put things in category, male, female, age. I hate to, categorize those things. I do think personalities play into that. And obviously I'm talking to some people here who understand that far better than I do, just from a scientific standpoint. But I do think that our differences in, far beyond what our genders are or our ages are, it's a conglomeration of things. Where I was raised all over the country versus someone who's only lived in town. We come to the same situation from different perspectives. And so I think that it's more complex than just saying, oh, I'm a woman and you're a man, and this is how we approach this circumstance.
That's a really good point. I do think it is complex. All relationships are complex and all teams are complex. And I agree. I think it's a combination of life experiences. I think it's, in this case, you traveling. I think it's in part our personality. It's in part what the project is we're working on. And then, as you pointed out, in part, it could be the kind of natural roles that male and female do kind of play in, and then the roles that we have within our job descriptions, right?
Yes.
But what I know of you and what you're describing here is there is a part of you that values getting the job done, right? And doing it well, that motivates you to keep people accountable and to be assertive and to move the team and the project and whatever the process is along. I call it high need for closure or high need for completion.
Yeah.
And I think you might possess a little of that you need to get something done. And there's an urgency that seems to be created when it's not, which allows you to step into your true gifting, which is project managing and pushing people along and doing what is necessary. Would you agree with that, or would you, or not?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I'm a terrible project manager. We'll put that out there first and foremost, but I am someone who can hold someone else accountable. And that's been really important to me in my life. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was like 4 or 5. And my dad was the one throughout my life who pushed me to get those projects completed, to do, there was a level of urgency there that I learned as I was growing up and through college and throughout my career, that I think it's sometimes we speak from a place that we feel lacking. And, sometimes we encourage other people because we need that encouragement that day. Sometimes, we project, I don't know another word for that, in a positive way, but because I've had to face that challenge and bridge that gap for my own self in my life, I think that's where that urgency comes from, is because I have to be on top of it. I have to make sure. And that's where teamwork comes in for my team. FRM Solutions is absolutely incredible. This is the best place I think that I've ever worked. And just because we do work well together, but that accountability is a key piece to maintain that urgency.
Cassidy,
Wow.
how do you motivate your own team? What are the techniques that you use? What are some of the conversations or let's say the key phrases or keywords?
I find that, how do I say this? I think encouragement for me is a gift that I have. Mm-hmm. And I think that is also a need that my team has in different ways. Everybody operates differently. So I know that there are certain people on my team that if I say, hey, good job on this, great job on that, that is going to suffice to motivate them throughout the day. Or if I call someone out on something that wasn't completed, that motivates them, that puts a fire under them to get that done in a positive way. Other people might need to hear, oh, this client said something great about you, and let me relay that to you. And those are really ways that I find not only encourage them, but bond us as a team, because we know we have each other's backs. We know that we're willing to push each other and encourage each other in a way that I don't think they would have if they didn't have a woman on their team. Yep.
Yay. Yeah, you become sort of that catalyst, that heart that keeps all the other pieces going. And you're absolutely right. Some of us need that accountability, and we so thrive on encouragement, and whether it's hearing it from a client or hearing it from one of our team members. So I love how you've just sort of jumped right into the middle of this male-dominated team, high-tech team. The woman steps in and sort of creates this almost pulse that you have created, this heartbeat that pulls people together and gets things done, just gets things done. So let's shift gears just a little bit. What blessings have come out of working in high tech and working with this team?
Something I never expected to find. I was a client of FRMs. I have been in the restaurant industry, as I said earlier, on the franchisor side. I had been a client of FRM Solutions before I became an employee for FRM. And I knew one of the big selling points for me was the relationship that we had with the FRM team. And that was a catalyst for me really deciding to come over. Stan Friedman, having, I would say my relationship with Stan and the mentorship and the word encouragement, and also kind of being called out by him for whatever here and there, has been a huge blessing to me. Being able to challenge myself intellectually from learning technology in a new way. I am on the team. We have years and years, decades of experience in franchising across our team. But I'm the one that's there to translate what the franchisor is saying to technology speak. And I have had moments where I just hit a wall and was like, there's a ceiling here and I can't learn. I can't code. I can't, there's a point in time that I've just felt like giving up, because I've reached my capacity. And in those moments, some of the blessings that I've had are getting to the point where I had to trust my team, that I could hand something off and that we could work collaboratively to be able to, close a deal, because we were able to show both the franchising side and the technology side. And so it sounds kind of funny that out of the biggest challenges in the moments that I felt like I wanted to give up because I didn't have the capacity to do certain things, then, I've learned some really great lessons and things that are going to carry with me throughout the rest of my career and my life.
I think you touched on something so important, which is knowing our strengths and our competencies, and then at the same time, knowing our areas of weakness or our deficiencies, like knowing where it's time to pass the baton to somebody, and then being able to trust that other person, that they're going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
Self-awareness is huge, and being able to admit, and I find as myself, as I find that phrase, I think that I have said that 10 times while we've been talking, because it's a process of self-discovery. It's a process of learning. It's a lesson in process, right? And the I'll get it out. I'll get it out. I'll get the word out.
We trust you, Cassidy.
The ability to really open up and be transparent and accept and be humble about failure and the successes that come out of accepting failure, I think is really hard. And I find, is what I was going to say, as a woman, that I might have a leg up in that department, because maybe not even from a great point of historically women being self-effacing, right? Mm-hmm. But from that, Phoenix rises from the ashes. You learn how to be able to take your self-awareness and turn that around so that you can maximize the opportunity that comes out of your weaknesses, quote unquote weaknesses. I don't feel like people have weaknesses. They have opportunities to improve a skill, right?
Absolutely. This statement, I find really, you're right, kind of psychologically has us looking for a solution, has us going inside to search for the answer, right? It is a self-discovery process. I am going to actually put that on my computer. I find what? I find solutions. I find team members. I find the answer. I find within me the courage, the strength, whatever. This is a beautiful, beautiful, it's almost an affirmation. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what it feels like to me. I find the self-discovery and the self-awareness, but it also, I'm going to guess, if I find works for you inside, it probably also works in finding the talents and the gifts in others, and solutions that you could either provide or solutions that you need to garner more participation, or that team player to step up, or whatever it is you're needing.
There is a level of empathy that's involved in that I think is an appropriate level of empathy, in that recognizing those moments or those gaps within your team. Also taking that when I'm talking to a potential client and analyzing, okay, where are your gaps, and being able to put myself in their shoes, because Socrates says, live the examined life, right? Or something along those lines. If I am able to examine the gaps in myself, then I am able to do that with my team, do that with a client, do that professionally, do that personally. And it is a work in progress. I'm not perfect at doing that, but that is why, from a personal standpoint, that journey that I've taken over the years, I think has landed me in this place that I really enjoy what I'm doing. And I feel like I'm fulfilling a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful.
I don't know if that answered your question at
No,
all,
it,
but
it does. I got to tell you, Cassidy, I'm so obsessing over this, I find, because it's the it literally is the answer to almost everything I find within me, outside of me, I find. And just that thinking process, especially if we combine it with this beautiful skill, I call it a skill. Dr. Daniel Goleman calls it a skill of empathy, that ability to be in someone else's shoes. So what can we find within them that is beautiful and talented and can contribute to the world? And what can I find within myself? And how can those things come together so we can get this project done, we can build this business, we can make a difference, whatever. So I'm obsessing right now this.
I gave you something new.
This is so beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. I think it helps to create that space of mindfulness and self-awareness and showing others that we don't necessarily have all the answers and we don't necessarily know all the answers, but I find, so I'm explaining or I'm sharing with you that I'm still in the discovery process.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then that encourages others, or it may even inspire others to be in that same discovery process as well.
And if we accept that we're in a lifelong discovery process, I really, for me, that has meant that I can let go of control of things, that I don't feel like I have to be in constant control. And that's been really freeing to me, because now I know I have a choice of where I want to go. And those paths are going to be blessed. You know, those paths are ahead of me. In my constant discovery, am going to evolve over time. And so not only am I don't have to sit here and look 20 years ahead and say, this is where I want to be and this is where I'm going to be. There is a level of understanding in my brain and in my heart that I'm going to end up where I'm supposed to end up. And that's a beautiful thing. I have desires of things that I want to accomplish, but I don't know what that's going to look like or what the process is going to look like. And again, this goes back to trust. I have to immensely trust in whatever powers may be. I have to trust in my team. I have to trust in myself to know that I am doing the right thing. And yeah, I think it just boils down to a lot of these same themes.
Yeah, it definitely is a theme. You know, this word trust is a tough one for a lot of us. I know someone to let go and trust others that they have a similar desire for an outcome and that they're going to step up to the same level of the expectation we have in our mind. So do you find trusting others, you're trusting God and you're trusting you're on the right path, and you're trusting you're going to find the solutions and that the process is correct, whether you understand it or not. But do you find trusting others difficult? And what do you do when you're like, oof, I'm bumping up to, I don't know if they have the talent or the time or the inclination to do this part? How do you handle that?
That's a really complicated question, especially if we're talking about men. I have a much harder time trusting men than I do women. And there's a whole other backstory, long story for another day behind that. But I think that it's a lot harder for me to trust people that I don't know are, I'm trying to think of the word. I have a faith that is unshakable because I know that what I'm trusting in is solid. But my faith in other people sometimes is shakable because they don't come through. Mm-hmm. And my faith in myself is shakable because I don't come through. Mm-hmm. And so there's a reconciliation that I have to let go in a different way. And that's a lot harder. And I have maybe been told before that I am a little bit of a control freak on some things, but I am a 34-year-old woman who has lived on her own and done things her own way for a very long time. So it's one of those things that, I have had to work on and work on it a lot. And that's one of the blessings that's come out. And we talked about this earlier, but one of the blessings that's come out of me being able to healthily butt heads with the people around me and have dialogue and have conversation. And that is where that trust is built, because we can be open and transparent with each other. And if that's where I lose, that's where I start to get, I withdraw a little bit if you're not open and honest with me.
Transparency is so important.
Yeah.
And I love this whole concept about trust, because how can we really trust other people 100% if we ourselves make mistakes? So what you're really describing is going back to, God, the universe, like trusting that higher power that, yes, I know what my goals are. I know what I want to see happen, but I'm going to leave that to God and to the universe to really bring that all as I take my steps forward. I'm going to let that unfold and see, because the truth of the matter is we can plan, but we may be planning for this, but the universe wants to give us this.
That.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to control something, we might be trying to control it in a limited way.
Well, and something that you said is really poignant in the fact that, if I make a mistake and someone else makes a mistake, that is where grace comes into play. Because I have to be understanding of the fact that I'm not perfect, and therefore I have to give you a little patience and some time and some leeway, because you're definitely not perfect. But
Not even close.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a man, right? Oh, humans do let us down. There is no doubt. And we let ourselves down frequently. And it's almost as if what you're describing is a difference between trust and faith, right? And also this idea that trust can be a muscle. And while building that muscle, we have to give a lot of mercy and a lot of grace to ourselves and to others on our team. I find for me, I am harder on myself than I am on others. Oh, I messed up and I was supposed to have that done in this way, or, oh, I screwed up here, or whatever. I find I'm hardest on myself.
You have to step back and take a look at the bigger picture, because we live in those really myopic moments or microscopic moments, I guess is a better word for that. But we live in these tiny moments where we are harsh on ourselves and we focus on that mistake and we focus on that failure. But if I step back, I can take a look at what risk did I take to get me to that point, or what was do a postmortem. Is that the phrase? Do a postmortem of what led me to that spot. And then I don't do it again the next time, or maybe I do it again the next time, and I'm able to learn again. And then eventually I conquer it. And my fear is letting people down. That is an inherent fear that I have, and one that is a real challenge for me, because I'm focusing on other people rather than myself a lot of times. And sometimes again, that big picture, I have to come back to this and just say, hey, control. I can't control what they think. I can't control how they respond. I can control what I do. And the next time I'm going to come through, and here's how I'm going to do it. And if I were to say one of the cornerstones of the challenges of my life, that's one of them.
Wow. Wow. Well, and I like how you measure success. It's not on, did I come through? Was I successful? But what risks did I take? What did I learn? Then you give yourself a little bit of grace. Okay, I didn't come through, or I didn't measure up, or whatever. And then I will next time. And if I don't next time, again, what risks did I take? What did I learn? And I'll do better next time. So it's giving yourself a certain amount of grace, but also, like you said, looking back and saying what lessons were there, what purpose did that experience, including not coming through, have in my life to allow me to continue to evolve and grow and mature as a businesswoman, as a human being, etc. So I like your self-reflection. It is so unusual, general, let alone for a young woman like yourself. It's going to take you far, Cassidy. That self-reflection is going to take you far. And it's going to be a blessing to so many others that are observing you. And hopefully you're sharing some of these insights with others so they can learn how to trust themselves and learn, from their mistakes. I'm hoping you're encouraging others in the same way.
And that's why she's here today, right?
I know. I'm learning so much, Tracy.
Well, the thing too about self-reflection is not just reflecting, and I really want to make this point. It's not just reflecting as a woman on the mistakes that we've made or the lessons that we've learned. It's also reflecting on the accomplishments, the achievements, the wins, and giving ourselves credit for it. And not just internally, but making sure that other people know that we rightfully just did something really awesome. And so there's a lot of different sides to being a self-reflective person. You want to be outwardly reflective as well.
I love what you just said. Years ago, I was in a transformational training class, and it went on for about 6 months. And I guess at one point, I must have been really emotionally beating myself up because they specifically gave me an exercise where I had to take one day and set an alarm clock for every half hour. And every half hour, I had to pat myself on the back and acknowledge something that I had done that was good.
Mm.
But I'll tell you something, I learned so much in that one day from that exercise.
I imagine.
And I'm happy that you said, Cassidy, that not only learn from our mistakes, but learn from our accomplishments.
Yes.
Because I think,
Yeah.
especially as women, we let so many of our accomplishments go by as, oh, I was supposed to do that, no big deal. But to take those few minutes just to pat ourselves on the back, give ourselves that accomplishment, it's so enriching and rewarding. And you're right, we can learn a lot from that.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Thanks for hitting that home, both of you. Wowza. Okay, we're kind of getting close to our end time. Cassidy, this is kind of an off-the-wall question. What question should we have asked Cassidy Ford if we only had 30 minutes with her and she had something very powerful to share? What question should we have asked?
That's a great question. Maybe that's,
That's it.
I know a lot of people out there. I am so lucky to have connections with so many people in our franchise community, our franchise family. And a lot of people know my story about having Tourette syndrome and some of the things that have been challenges for me along the way. One of the things that I don't necessarily, and I think I've written about this on LinkedIn in years past, but one of the things that I'm really passionate about is just women being able to speak up and stand up and shout out and have a platform to have these conversations. And I guess if the question that you had to ask me was, how hard would I be willing to shake a woman to be able to get her to the point that she felt like she could use her voice? The answer is pretty hard. Hey guys, in a metaphorical perspective, like context, but how much am I willing to shake the tree or to pound home or to just really push a woman to get to that point where she knows she has a voice that that's the thing that I think drives me to do a lot of the things that I'm doing right now. All the other challenges set aside, I know people kind of know my story a little bit, but that's just something that if I could leave that with anybody out there listening, just use your voice.
Use your voice.
Let me take you. Let me take you.
Find it. I find
it. Yes.
my voice and I share my voice. Boom.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, we do need to wrap up. Cassidy, how do folks get hold of you and how do they learn more about FRM Solutions?
Yes, you can find me. You can call my cell phone. It's 254-644-1503. I'm happy to talk franchising or women in franchising or just shoot the breeze anytime. My email address is cford@frmsolutions.com. And you can visit our website at www.frmsolutions.com.
Thank you, Cassidy. You got 30 seconds, Tracy. Any final words for Cassidy and for our audience?
In the words of Rebecca Monet, I think that's the name of your next book. Stand up, speak up, shout out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's your book. Find your voice, share your voice. All right. Again, Cassidy, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. The rest of you listening in today to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. We will see you next week for another edition.